Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. This is Nate's Notes. Today I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the different things with the Utah Jazz. I brought a guest on here. Technology only works sometimes, so we're just going to have audio with him. My guest is Mark Wahlen. Mark, I've got you on here. Can you hear me pretty well?
Yeah, yeah, good to be on here, man. Thanks for taking the time and bringing me on to talk about the NBA and Utah Jazz basketball. I'm excited for the season to get rolling.
Yeah, right. How many more days do we have left now?
Oh, what were they saying today? It was like nine or 10 days till training camp or something like that. Not even that, I don't think. I think it's like less than a week till training camp and
Yeah.
9 or 10 days till the first preseason game or something crazy like that. I
Yeah,
can't quite remember, but it's close.
yeah. We're getting there, and it's closer than it's been. I remember last year, or it was last year or the year before, where they were doing all the jersey countdown. So they would always drop down and show, number 14 days, and so you'd have Hornacek or Stockton or 32 days for Malone. So I'm pretty
Right,
stoked that
yeah.
it's getting there.
Yeah, well, speaking of jerseys, Ricky Rubio breaking the news on social media today that the Jazz are indeed going to have the purple throwback jerseys as part of their lineup. We kind of already knew that, right? Because some of these video games have had it in their demos and things of that nature. So we knew it was coming, but we actually got to see pictures of the actual jerseys today from Rubio, and Joe Ingles was holding one up, and Donovan Mitchell had one as well. But what are your thoughts on the purple throwback jerseys?
I'm a big fan of it. I just like to be able to have a little bit of diversity. Like, I loved the city jerseys. I thought that was a huge risk. I didn't like them at first. I thought they were hideous, to be honest. But then once you had the court come together with it and they kind of wore on you for a little bit, it's nice to have some diversity, and it really changes it a lot. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, see, and I already sent this out on Twitter and just got slammed for it from Jazz Twitter, but I don't think the purple jerseys are all that great. To me, they're pretty basic. I mean, I'm with you. I like the diversity, and I'm glad that they're doing more jerseys and different kinds of jerseys. I think that's always a good thing and a fun thing because then you just get a good variety. But
Uh huh.
to me, they're just super simple. There's nothing like super exciting about them. I know there's like the nostalgia effect of them, being related to the Stockton and Malone era and all the fun things that happened with that team and those players while they wore those jerseys. But you kind of look at the jersey; they're kind of plain and boring. So I mean, they're okay, but I'm not nearly as excited as everybody else is for sure. So
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm actually going to throw a picture on here real quick so everybody can see what we're talking about. These are the purple jerseys. So it reminds me of Donovan's dunk jersey when he did it for the dunk contest. I think it's pretty similar. And I was hoping that maybe Joe Ingles would bring back some of the old good old memories and bring the short shorts with the purple jerseys for him, because it would totally work perfect.
yeah, he's got the legs for it. Like an old man, just pasty white legs.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great. So, but maybe he's been sun tanning in Australia, so maybe that wouldn't be so bad. But yeah,
He's
he'd be an excellent candidate for those shorts, I think.
yes, he would be, but he definitely is still pretty pasty. So that's the funny part. So let's see if I can pull up the picture here. So some of the things I wanted to talk about. Dante's always one that I think he'll determine whether this season really goes a lot further. I think he's one of the key cogs of it to see who really, how far our ceiling is, because we know what it is from last year, and we know we can at least, maybe do the same and maybe a little bit better. I don't think we're going to have some huge surprises like we did this last season. So that's my question kind of to you is, how much do you think Dante can make a change? And then what other players do you see that really could help us make that next step?
Yeah, well, so specifically to Dante, so I'm a huge Dante Exum fan. I've bought a lot of real estate on Dante Exum Island, and I've bought more and more as the years have gone by, and more people have been selling it.
Right.
So I like to joke that I'm the majority landowner on Dante Exum Island. so, so from the beginning here, I'm a huge believer in him, and clearly the organization is, especially they showed that this offseason with the contract that they gave him, a multi-year contract that was quite a bit more money than a lot of people expected Dante to get.
Sure.
It was kind of one of those situations, almost like a Derek Favors situation, where he probably didn't need to give him that much money because I don't know if the market was there for him. But I think the Jazz wanted to be proactive in that and showing that they had that trust and that faith in him and that confidence in him. And I think that's a good thing to do. But yeah, with that being said, being a believer in him and all, what can we expect from him? How much better can he get? If you look at it realistically, This next season, I honestly don't expect a whole ton of improvement from Dante Exum. Personally, I still think he's another year away. And, just if you look at it, you go look at his numbers. Like, let's just take his numbers for his career,
Uh huh.
right? Which, there's clearly been some things there with the injuries and his missed time from playing and all that. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But just looking at his career numbers, he's a 40% field goal percent scorer. 3-point percentage shooter is about 31%. 2-point percentage about 48%. Effective field goal percentage about 47%. Couple assists, couple rebounds, less than half a steal per game, and then about 6 points per game. It's just very, very uncommon and very, very rare for a player who is produced at that kind of a level to all of a sudden jump, let's say even just like 8 percentage points in their field goal percentage, or even like 3 or 4 percentage points in their 3 point shooting percentage,
Uh huh.
or like points per game. It's really rare to go from 6 points a game or even 8 points a game, which is what Dante was at this last season when he was playing, up to 16 or 15 or 14, right? Like that'd be like doubling his production,
Right.
right? And so I think a lot of people when they talk about Dante this next season, they're expecting that kind of huge step forward. But I think that's really unfair to expect Dante to do that. Now, was it fair to expect him to come in and defend at a high level like we saw him do in the playoffs? Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that's very possible. But I think more specifically, offensively speaking, people kind of have to cool their jets and still be patient with Dante. I know that's a huge thing that people don't want to hear because we've been trying to be patient with him for so long.
Right.
But, again, like he's dealt with injuries for so long. He's only had, a couple off seasons ever in his NBA career to really work on things while being healthy, right? And so, I think he's going to see some marginal improvements, but as far as like a huge improvement on offense that people are looking for, I still think that's probably another year away.
So what? So what specifically? What do you see his ceiling as being? So it's going to take obviously, potentially you're saying a year for him to be able to come into his own. What is it that he has to do in that year to make him? Is he a starting point guard? Is he someone that can take Rubio's position? That's my question. And if it takes him another year, what is it that we're waiting for? And kind of what that time frame? You know what I mean? You're saying about a year. What does he have to accomplish in that time?
Yeah, I think his ceiling is a starter or better, right? I mean, Dante. I mean, when you talk ceiling, you kind of have to ask the question: well, what factors or variables go into ceiling? And to me, a lot of what determines a player's ceiling is predicated on their physical and athletic tools. Because I mean, honestly, if you look at the best players in the league, it's really, 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 really rare to find ones that are just elite physical specimens, elite athletes, right? So, but you look at Dante. I mean, he has elite physical tools. He has elite athleticism. So his ceiling to me is very, very high. It's always been the skills portion of his game
Uh huh.
and the basketball IQ portion of his game that's been lacking. So that's really what you want to be looking for in his development to see just how high up and towards that ceiling he can get. But specifically in comparison to Rubio, um, it's funny because we have Rubio on the roster, we have Dante on the roster. It's this big question right now. Well, who's going to be the point guard of the future, especially with Rubio's contract being up at the end of the year? And people are always asking me, well, do you think Dante can step in and take over for Rubio? And I always say, yeah, potentially, right? Like potentially he could. Like again, he has that type of potential. Um, whether or not he'll be ready to do that by the end of the season or not, I can't say. I don't think so. Again, I think he would still need another year, which puts the Jazz in an interesting position this next offseason because they're essentially going to have to make that decision before they may be fully confident in Dante's ability to do that. But you look at Rubio compared to Dante. I mean, if Dante Exum can become Ricky Rubio, then he's a high caliber starting point guard in this league, and he's
Absolutely.
a guy that you want starting on your team, right? Like I mean, Rubio. I mean, this last season he had a rough start to the year, but he had a fantastic end to the season. It was really, really great for us. But he scores 13 points a game. He averages a steal and a half per game, 5 assists per game, about 4.5 rebounds. He's an 87% free throw shooter. And then again, similar to Dante, his shooting numbers aren't excellent, but he was a 35% three-point shooter last season on 3.5 attempts per game, about 42% field goal percentage. I mean, if Dante can become that, then that to me is a huge win, right? And you can be confident in him being your starting point guard moving forward. and you can probably get away with him being that at a cheaper rate than maybe like a Ricky Rubio will be demanding here when he hits free agency. But again, like it's so hard to say because we still just don't know who Dante is or what kind of a player he is. But yeah, like that's typically what I would tell people is, if you can get Dante Exum to become Ricky Rubio, then that's fantastic. I think people are wanting more from him, but I think that would be a fair expectation, especially considering where you drafted him and all the time and money that you've invested in him in his development. And with that, just because he has that high ceiling, becoming Ricky Rubio is not achieving his highest ceiling, but that's certainly achieving enough that you can be satisfied with it.
I agree 100%. If he can become Ricky Rubio, I think that's huge. But I don't think he has the characteristics to become Rubio, in the sense of Rubio just plays with a much different pace. And I guess I'm comparing two different point guards. It's like comparing Rubio to a Westbrook, with their athleticism and things like that. They're different skills. But my train of thought too on that is, if you've got already Rubio producing, and I think personally, if Rubio continues what he did last year towards the end of the season, like you're talking about, and puts it towards this whole season and becomes more consistent, I would easily say he's a top. What was he ranked right now as point guards? He was 60 something, or excuse me.
Like the top 100 players.
Yeah, do you remember?
He's in the 50 to 60 range. It's a little bit different depending on which list you look at, but yeah, I mean personally, I have him in my 50 to 60 range.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, and that's the thing is if he does consistently what he did last year, this last season, I can easily see him, potentially climbing up there with. Who's the point guard that went up this year? He's on the Pelicans.
Drew Holiday?
Yeah, Drew Holiday. I think he could potentially be ranked up there with Drew Holiday pretty easily if he can start consistently hitting the three-pointer and stuff like that, like he was towards the end of the season.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people, I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but I think a lot of people want Dante Exum to become the future point guard of the Jazz. But again, Ricky Rubio is really, really good, right?
Absolutely.
If you have to, if you settle, right? Like if you want to call it that, if you settle for Ricky Rubio being your starting point guard of the future, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Even if he doesn't figure out how to shoot better than 35% from three,
yeah.
But he still brings that elite defense, that elite passing, his elite abilities in the locker room as the person and the guy that he is. That's great. You're happy with that. If you have Rubio, Rudy Gobert, and Donovan Mitchell moving forward, and then you can add another piece to that. That's a championship contending team. That's a team you can win a championship with. You don't necessarily need someone significantly better at all than Rubio. Rubio is a perfectly fine option if he continues to play the way he did this last season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So that segues perfect. Kind of the last thing. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to talk about the last piece the Jazz need. And one thing that I discussed on my last video was what's the time frame for that. So I think it's more or less when is the opportunity available for the Jazz. So potentially I could see maybe the trade deadline. Some team like we saw with Mark Gasol. He was on the help me out here.
The Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, so like the Memphis Grizzlies, where all of a sudden they realized, between health and their talent, they just decided to throw in the towel, and Mark Gasol became available. Now, I'm not saying that's our guy, but I'm saying that potentially, some player like that could be out there available. Let's say maybe a Kevin Love, and I'm not saying we want that huge contract, but, we have Derek Favors' contract that would be fairly a good one to trade with if we needed to. I don't necessarily say that they're going to do it in the middle of the season, but if it makes them a contender for the next year, like a Tobias Harris or, something like that. What are your thoughts for that next piece on maybe the time frame of when we grab that, and are we going to do that?
Yeah, I think the time frame is now. I think we're officially in win now mode, which is kind of interesting to say because this time last year we definitely weren't in that mode. We were in a kind of what the heck are we gonna do and who are we gonna be?
Yeah.
Moving forward, right? But the emergence of Donovan Mitchell. Even guys like Royce O'Neal, Ricky Rubio, those pieces all coming together and getting us to the team that we had this last year, we're in win now mode. I mean, we're not that far away from being a championship contender. I mean, this season, this upcoming season, we're being projected as the top 4 team in the Western Conference, right? In a stacked Western Conference. And so if you're a top 4 team in the Western Conference, or you're at least being considered as one, I mean, you're right there on the edges of being able to compete. So So yeah, I think the Jazz are looking to add another piece here when they can, as soon as they can. How they're going to do that, it's hard to say. I'm sure they would love to add that piece either now or at the trade deadline via a trade, because that guarantees you getting that player, and you don't have to risk going into free agency and playing the free agency game, where you could potentially lose out on everybody, right? And then
Absolutely.
you're just out of luck. But at the same time, like again, the Jazz are a really good team. They don't necessarily have the pressure on them to go out and add that guy right now if the right deal and the right player's not available, right?
Uh huh.
So yeah, like a guy like Tobias Harris, for example, would be fantastic to go add here at the trade deadline, or maybe even like a 3-team deal with Minnesota and the Clippers, get Jimmy Butler to the Clippers or something like that. We ended up with Tobias Harris. We shipped out Derek Favors, who you mentioned is a great contract to use in these kind of negotiations. With the price point that he's at, and then being an expiring contract essentially, and still being a good young player. I mean, you could look at maybe doing something like that, but at the same time, like Tobias Harris is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, right? So maybe the Jazz have that confidence in themselves as an organization that they can really go out and be competitive in the free agent market, and they can sign a guy like Tobias Harris straight out in free agency without having to give up any future assets like a draft pick or anything like that. They would likely have to include in a deal like that, right? So again, I think that they want to add a piece. That desires there. I believe that they recognize that they're a piece like a Tobias Harris or even like a Chris Middleton or a caliber player like that away from being a true contender. But again, they don't necessarily have to do it right now. They can wait until free agency this next year. But I think next year's free agency, next offseason's free agency, that's kind of like the deadline. Like if the Jazz get to that point, they still haven't added somebody, and they fail to add somebody in next year's free agency, I think that's a time in which Jazz fans should be concerned, because that's really their window. Because they'll have max cap space. A lot of those big name free agents are going to be on the market. So if you can't get somebody by then something is wrong. And then there's definitely pressure to go out and make a deal happen. So
Yeah, absolutely. So my feeling is that the question is, we've got to add that one more piece, and I feel that's like a 3 or a 4 position, right? For what we use, like you said, a Tobias Harris, Chris Middleton, Jimmy Butler. I'm not saying specifically people, but kind of the size, the area, kind of a too bad Gordon Hayward had to walk, right? Because we'd be in such a different position.
We'd be a championship contender this year if Hayward had stayed. I mean, that's the truth, and that's the sucky truth, right?
Yeah, but
and honestly, he is pretty much the perfect fit. Like he doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. He could have played off Mitchell really well. He could have played great defense. He moves the ball well. He would have fit the system perfectly. He's a great shooter. Like he really would have been like the ideal fit. So that's it. It's a bummer.
yeah, I bet people who are going to listen are definitely going to feel salty. So I I agree with that. So my question, I was having a debate. The last thing I'll ask you was kind of where do you think we rank in the NBA? Because I think we're definitely top 5. The argument's very easy, I think, to make for a top 5. Do you think we can go higher than that in the NBA of top 5? And what teams do we overtake? And also, another question to throw on top of that, like, what does it take us to get past those next teams that are close?
Let me ask you this. So who do you have as the teams ahead of the Jazz in the NBA? Not just the Western Conference, but just the NBA in general.
So I've got Warriors. I've got, let's see here, Warriors. I think Rockets are super close. I've got Toronto potentially. I've got, let's see here. There's one in the East I'm missing right now. Boston. I think Boston's close. So I think potentially we could be as close as, this may sound cocky, I think we could potentially be number 2 or 3. But I think number 1, Warriors. Number 2, I would take probably Boston if things go well this year. Number 3, either the Jazz or the Rockets. And then you could potentially throw in the Thunder somewhere, and you've got Toronto. What are your thoughts?
Okay, interesting. I'm okay with that. I'll say this. I think Boston's going to be the best team in the NBA this next year. I think they're going to win the championship.
Ooh.
So I would take Boston number 1.
Okay.
I would take Golden State number 2. I know people are going to kill me for that. Anytime you go against the Warriors, people think you're an idiot. But
that's okay. I don't care about them.
I'm calling my shot.
Yeah.
Boston number 1, Golden State number 2, Toronto number 3. I think Toronto's going to be legit.
Wow.
I mean, Kawhi Leonard, people forget he's a top 3, top 4 player in the NBA when he's healthy, right?
But
So
the
if
question is,
he's healthy and playing, they're gonna be amazing.
my question too, though, is the caveat: does he fit in? Like, do you think he's just a plug and play player that he can just go to
Yes.
Toronto and make him great?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Dang
If,
it!
if you're a top, if you're a top, if you're a top 3 or 4 player in the NBA, you can go anywhere and you can be successful. Look at the team that he had with San Antonio when they were playing the Warriors in the playoffs. It was a playoff series where Zaza undercut him and
Uh-huh.
he messed up his ankle. I mean, we're talking about that Kawhi Leonard. Like that Kawhi Leonard was on the brink of single-handedly beating the Warriors.
Whew. Yeah, you're right.
But that San Antonio team was not any good.
Yeah, right.
Right? But like this Toronto team he's going to is much better than that San Antonio team, right? So,
Yeah.
So that's my thing. So yeah, like definitely, for me, I'm putting Toronto ahead of the Jazz just because of Kawhi. Like Kawhi's that good.
Okay.
So I'd have them ahead. I don't necessarily believe in Philadelphia, so I'm not gonna put them up there.
Okay.
I don't believe in Houston anymore, but I may or may not have Oklahoma City ahead of the Jazz.
What?
That's the one other team.
Okay, why?
We're sleeping on.
Why?
One, because they got better, because they got rid of Melo.
Okay.
And then number 2, they have Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Steven Adams, and that core 3 is quite good.
But how did they change over the Jazz? Like, I feel the Jazz have gotten better. Now, I agree that they've gotten better by additions, by subtraction, with getting rid of Carmelo. But at the same time, we have as well by not necessarily getting rid of anybody, but we have Tabo back. We have, Crowder coming back to a good season. And we have Favors, and we have consistency. Like, I feel we're over them. I feel we're over them in a 7-game series. I think it goes to 5 or 6 games again.
I understand that. And I don't blame people for that. To me, I just look at that playoff series against Oklahoma City, and there's 2 things for me about that series. Number 1, if they don't play Melo, they have a really good chance of winning that series. Number 2, if Andre Robertson plays in that series, they definitely beat the Jazz.
No. I don't think they beat them. I think they stretch it, but I don't think they beat them.
Oh, no. They definitely beat them. And here's the thing. Here's my thing with the Jazz, and this is one of my biggest question marks with the Jazz moving forward, okay? This is the one that really will determine if they're better or worse than Oklahoma City, okay? The biggest issue with the Jazz moving forward is their offense, okay?
Uh-huh.
If they cannot score, they have major issues. Their defense is going to be there. Their defense is going to be fine, assuming that Rudy Gobert stays healthy, which is, a question in of itself. But assuming he stays healthy, the defense is going to be there. But you go back to that Oklahoma City series, the times in which they struggled the most, and Oklahoma City was beating them, is when they couldn't score, and that was when Melo wasn't on the floor, right?
Yeah.
And then as part of that, they had no one that could guard Donovan Mitchell. Nobody. But who could have guarded Donovan Mitchell was Andre Robertson, I should say. I always mispronounce his last name. It's Robertson. But Robertson would have made a huge difference in that series because he would have matched up against Donovan Mitchell. Corey Brewer had no chance guarding Donovan Mitchell in that series. That's why Donovan was able to do what he does. But if Robertson's healthy in that series, Donovan can't do what he does, and that's going to bog down our entire offense, and we would have struggled much more to score against them. And with Russell Westbrook and Paul George, they're going to score. Like they're just
Okay, so
just that talented. They would have figured out a way to score.
let me ask you. Let me ask you this. So you're saying if they have someone who can cover Mitchell, so what about Donovan's statistics against Trevor Ariza with Houston? He was still scoring. Am I wrong?
He was still scoring, but he still had a hard time.
He had a hard time, but I don't think it changed the course of the whole game. So that's what I would compare it to, is if you put Robertson on Mitchell, and I would say they're fairly similar in probably how they guard Mitchell and the toughness of him. So I wouldn't say that it was like significant. I would say it definitely makes a difference, but I wouldn't say that it would turn the tide that potentially OKC would lose, or would win, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, and I get that argument. To me, you go back and you watch those series. I'm even gonna see if I can pull up the game logs for the playoffs here, but
Yeah.
let's see. Let me see if I can pull up Donovan's. Excuse me, but again, like I think that was part of the problem in the Houston series is Donovan had a really hard time getting going.
Uh-huh.
Offensively.
Sure. I'm
right?
trying to
Like,
pull that up too.
excuse me. That's really what made Houston so good was their defense, not their offense, right? And I think in that series, like again, like the reason we struggled so much with them. I mean, sure, we had a hard time guarding them because they like to space Rudy out and all that stuff. But I think the major issue was we couldn't score on them.
Yeah,
So,
and that's fair. I get that. But that was the question I was wondering if we put that. Do you have that pulled up?
yeah, I'm see. I got the team stats. I need to pull up Donovan's. But let's see. So in the games, okay. So in the games that the Jazz lost against Houston, here's the total number of points that we scored. And this is kind of to my point. The offense is really we just couldn't score against
Sure.
them. So in the first game against Houston, we only scored 96 points.
Okay.
Okay. Game 2, the game we won, we scored 116. Okay. So our offense clearly didn't have issues.
Sure.
Game 3, we scored 92. Game 4, we scored 87.
Ouch.
Game 5, we only scored 102.
Okay.
Right? Like that's the issue.
Yeah.
Right?
That
That's the problem right there. Is your offense can't score. And if your offense, and here's the thing too. This is the thing that people forget. Offense and defense are related. If you cannot score, it's going to put a lot more pressure on your defense, and your defense is going to suffer.
Yeah,
right?
I absolutely agree.
Jerry Sloan always used to teach that. He said sometimes the best defense is putting the ball through the hoop.
Yeah.
Right? It slows the game down, especially for the Jazz. It slows the game down, allows them to set their defense, allows Gobert, everyone else gets set, turns it into a slow pace, half court grinded out game, which the Jazz want, and that's really where their defenses are best at, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not doing that, especially against a team like Houston, they're out running and gunning, they're running off of offensive rebounds, they're creating turnovers, you're getting out in transition, they're getting Rudy Gobert spaced out. I mean, all those different things come into play when you can't score, right? So like that to me, especially in the playoffs, you know, that's a huge question mark that the Jazz have to address moving forward, is whether or not they can get their offense rolling and get it up into a top 10 offense, not just like a top 15, top 20, which they were last year, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
So again, that's my thing. And Donovan, let's see if I can pull up his playoff numbers here, but you can't just rely on Donovan when he's got Trevor Ariza or Robertson guarding him. Other guys have to step up, but in that series against Houston, he had a hard time getting rolling against Trevor Ariza. So.
And that was my concern with the whole running it back thing is let's run it back, but let's run it back with a Mirotic or somebody like that, you know what I mean, that we could even that guy that ended up going to Sacramento from the Timberwolves, you know what I mean, Belichick or something like that, throw someone there that we could potentially, space the floor a little bit more and get some more points, because I think you're absolutely right, but Quinn's a genius. I'll give him that, but I just wonder how they're going to do the same thing. You know what I mean? Because they're running into the same problem as the offense.
Sure. Well, okay. So here, let me give you Donovan's numbers in the Houston series. Just scoring, okay?
Okay.
Just the points. So game 1 against Houston, he only scored 21 points. And here's the weird thing. Game 2, the one that we won. He only scored 17. Game 3, scored 10.
Ooh.
Game 4, he scored 25. But his field goal percentage was 33%.
Ouch.
27% or 29% from 3.
Ooh, that hurts.
And then the last game, game 5, he scored 24 points. And in that game, he played a little bit better. He had a field goal percentage of 53%, but again, from 3, he only shot 29%. So, but you go back, you look at Oklahoma City, here's his scoring output from Oklahoma City series, 27, 28, 22, 33, 23, 38.
My thing, watching with what you're saying about the 17 points, when he had 17 points when we win, that's the thing, is you have to have other people stepping up making baskets when he can't, or because he's going to create a lot of open shots for us, but that's the thing is we just have to have other options. And I think Quinn's a smart guy. I got to think that he's got something up his sleeve to figure out how we can do that, besides just beating him to death with defense.
Sure. But, again, like you take out Trevor Ariza in that Houston series, and, the Jazz are going to give Houston a run for their money.
Yeah.
Because Donovan Mitchell's going to be scoring 28, 29, 30 points a night, not shooting 28%.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
So again, that's kind of back to our original conversation, that's where, I look at Oklahoma City and I think, okay, they got rid of Melo, who was a massive liability for them, which makes them much better, in my opinion, just by default, getting rid of him. And then you get, at some point, which sounds like it's going to be around Christmas, you get an Andre Robertson back, who's an elite defender, who's going to make a massive difference for them defensively, and especially against a team like Utah, right?
Yeah.
Where we're heavily reliant on a guy like Donovan to be our main primary creator. Not to say he's going to shut Donovan down completely, and Donovan's going to get better, but that's a factor that you have to consider. So, and to me, Oklahoma City's biggest thing is very similar to the Jazz. Other than the offense, is they have to stay healthy. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Russell Westbrook just had his surgery on his knee. Robertson's not going to come back till sometime around Christmas, is what reports are saying. Steven Adams just always gets the crap beat out of him. So he's trying to stay healthy. Paul George has had his fair share of health issues. I think even this offseason he had a small knee procedure as well. So, I mean, they got to stay healthy, but I think if they're healthy, they're going to be pretty darn good because they're going to be really good defensively. And I think offensively, they just have the talent to be really, really good there. So.
I agree. I think almost every top team in the league, if they get bit by the injury bug, I mean, you look at Golden State, and when either Durant or Curry or someone was down, that was a huge difference on them. And so I think that could take anybody down. The last quick question I have for you, and I would love to hear people's thoughts on this too. You specifically said that Kawhi being able to be a plug and play player for the Raptors. My question is that mean it's the same case for LeBron going to the Lakers and putting him into potentially rivaling Utah? Or do you think that's a different situation?
It's the same in the sense that LeBron is, the best player in the NBA, and wherever he goes, he's going to make you an automatic playoff team. The difference is his team is not good. The team in LA is not as good as the team in Toronto.
Sure.
Sorry, all the Laker fans that may listen to this. LeBron's older. LeBron, at some point is going to start to see his productivity level drop off just because he's old. Like, I mean, he's going to be much more likely to be injured as he gets older. So that may come into play. He's always been really healthy throughout his career, but you look at Kobe Bryant at the end of his career. He was playing really, really well, had been really, really healthy, and then all of a sudden he tears the Achilles, and that's the end of Kobe as we knew him. Right?
Yep, it's true.
LeBron is one injury like that away from being essentially done, right? And he's kind of getting to that similar age that Kobe was at near the end of his career as well. So yeah, I mean, LeBron again is going to make you a playoff team, but you've got a much worse roster than Toronto does, and he's much older than Kawhi is. So those are the only two caveats that I would add to that.
All right. Well, that's perfect. Hey, we're going to wrap it up here. I've taken more time than I should, but hey, Mark, I appreciate you helping. And if you guys want to go ahead, I'll pull it up on the screen right now. Go to and follow if you're not already. And if you're a Jazz fan, you've got to, because he has a ton of good information at Mark WAHLENNBA. Go ahead and follow him. He's a great follow. Thank you for your time today, Mark. And other than that, we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.